This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew. It's a Craft Beer Brewing Podcast. I'm Jamie Bogner, and I'm in Minneapolis. Actually, I'm not in Minneapolis.
St. Paul.
I'm in the Twin Cities, St. Paul, Minnesota. Gosh, as I was saying it, I knew I was saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. It's fine. You're okay. You know.
Exactly. Anyway, joining me for this episode, Tim Johnson from Barrel Theory. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Tim.
How are you?
This is a podcast that I have been trying to record for 5 years now.
A long time.
We have emailed about it. We have our Minnesota Craft Beer Festival up here every year, and so I'm always in town. We tried to connect, and the year that we were supposed to record this was 2020.
Yep. Right during the pandemic.
And then, the festival's in April, oh, wait, that didn't happen.
Because we shut down, right? Second or third week in March.
And so here we were supposed to do this, and then it just didn't happen because nothing happened.
Yep.
And then the next year, it also did not happen because got canceled again. Anyway, it's taken a long time for us to get here. But here we finally are.
Better late than never, they say.
Yeah, exactly. But excited to finally have this conversation and talk to you, Tim, about your approach to progressive beer styles, Hazy IPA, fruited sours, barrel-aged beers.
Yep.
You've been making cool beers up here in St. Paul for a long time now.
Yep. Since 2017, we started the brewery. So we've been doing all that stuff since then. We were kind of there wasn't really any of that stuff here. I started homebrewing them. We can talk about that, whatever, doing that stuff. But
you've got a beer geek basis.
I do. Yes.
And, worked professionally, in other parts of brewing here. And then started this with a goal to kind of, blend those two things together. We're going to talk about all of that and that approach to beer in the way that you are building flavor, but also employing processes, ingredients in a way to serve those flavors. Before we do that, at G&D Chillers, they always strive to build great chillers. Partner with them as you build great beer. Kevin Toger from Bearded Iris Brewing says, quote, G&D Chillers has been a valuable partner throughout our growth. They build high quality equipment and know their machines extremely well. Most importantly, their customer service is best in class, which is a huge value add to all of our internal teams that manage these critical support systems. Choose G&D Chillers on your next expansion or brewery startup and receive 1 free year of remote control and monitoring of your new G&D chiller. And ProBrew is the industry partner that brewers trust to take their operations to the next level, especially when it comes to canning their product for distribution. By partnering with ProBrew, brewers can fill and seam their canned product. It ranges from 100 to 600 cans per minute. Their unique filling process also ensures low dissolved oxygen pickup and focuses on product quality during the entire process. For more information, visit probrew.com or email them at contactus@probrew.com. ProBrew, brew your beer. Also, Old Orchard has supplied flavored craft juice concentrate blends to over 46 states for the production of fruit-forward beer, cider, seltzer, wine, spirits, and more. By partnering with some of the biggest names in the craft brewing landscape, Old Orchard has become a go-to source of fruit-forward ingredients. To learn more and request your free samples, head on over to oldorchard.com/brewer. Well, Tim, we normally start off the podcast with a little bit of background and history. What's yours? What's your arc through beer look like?
Well, I was homebrewing 2007, 8, 9, something like that. So way back in the day, West Coast IPAs were the thing. I think the Hazy IPAs were a thing in the East Coast. I was a concerning beer trader at that point too. So I was doing trades we had abrasive and stuff like that here, which I used to brew at Surly. I'd get into that after I started homebrewing. But, used to get that stuff traded here, like Heady Topper and all that jazz, Hill Farmstead.
You'd send abrasive out that way.
And they would say, used to be able to trade 1 for 1, can for can or 4-pack for 4-pack, clearly.
Sure.
So, I started homebrewing with that. I was making West Coast IPAs and stuff like that, Probably during this podcast, I'm going to, hype up a lot of the brewers that I try to copy, stuff like that. But I tried to make that, Plan the Elder double IPA.
That inspired you.
Inspired me very much. I'm like, I used to trade for that as well.
Sure.
So Yeah, I started making that. It didn't turn out very good, but that was fine. And then after I like had some of the heady topper and stuff like that, I started wanting to make hazy IPAs. Wasn't a lot of yeast strains for that here. So I tried to build up some crappy dregs from the bottom of a heady topper can, and it's not very good yeast, but we gave it a crack. Started doing that quite a bit. Eventually, like yeast strains came out, the Conan strain, that everybody and their mom makes now, which is cool. So we still use it here with some other yeast, but
with some other yeast. We'll come back.
Yeah,
to
with some other stuff. Like we mix. Yeah, we'll come back for sure. And then so I was homebrewing
yeast. I love that subject.
Yeah. Yeah, so we always just doing that quite a bit, and then I was volunteering at Surly Brewing Company with a buddy of mine that we started the brewery together. Eventually. So I was volunteering, helping dip bottles. They had like darkness, smoke, anniversary. So I started doing all that. Eventually got a job.
Pentagram.
Yeah, pentagram. That was a thing.
Remember
there wasn't a lot of sours.
When people made Brett beers, right?
Yeah, Brett beers, and it was like a very kind of like vinegar sour, which was different, but it was good. And Surly was like super cool, and it was like the only like brewery doing stuff around here that was like, like Furious and all that stuff, right? Things that you wouldn't see in the market. Anyways. Eventually got offered to do like tours, which I sucked at. Not very good, like giving tours or like having like a spiel about someone else's like life,
right.
So I did my best and I did it. I went out there because it's just what I needed to do.
You told the Omar story.
Oh God. I know I messed up a bunch of times, but I gave it, I tried.
Sure.
I tried. So it was just a way to like, okay, I'm going to do this. I need to do the things. And I ended up, working in the tap room there, the old one at BC before the big brewery opened. And I asked if I could, get in the brewery, and someone ended up leaving. So I took their spot, like in the cellar. So I don't know what year that was, 2013, 14, something like that. Started cleaning tanks. They were super busy. I mean, they were pumping out a lot of beer. So I was cleaning tanks, setting up tanks, setting up tanks, and got on the centrifuge. Started running that. Then I became a brewer. Was brewing the beers, doing all like the Axeman and all that stuff. A lot of darkness, So I got a lot of really good like education by working at a big brewery.
Sure.
Before starting a brewery, because like that was hard back then, right? You had a lot of home brewers jumping like, I got either I got a bunch of money or someone gave me a bunch of money, and now I'm gonna start a brewery. Where, I was like, it'd be really cool just to try to learn how to like actually work in a commercial brewery, because there's a lot more things that go into it that I think it's very beneficial to learn. So I did all that, got the opportunity to come here to start this brewery, 2017. And I was brewing, jumping back here, I was home brewing a lot of fruited sours, stuff from like what Jay Wakefield did, the Miami Vice, they call it, Try to get a lot of ingredients that cost $1 million because you can't get them in Minnesota. It turns out dragon fruit, hard.
Sure.
Passion fruit, hard. Doesn't grow here. So it was something that was never like seen before here though. And like Surly never did that stuff, and that's fine. And hazy IPAs are not a thing there. So I had to learn that stuff on my own and by trading and trying, so
necessity is the mother of invention, and like trading for that becomes a pain after a while.
Yeah. You
just got to figure out how to make it yourself.
Yeah. So by learning the things and how to brew on a commercial scale, like water and, things of that nature, learning how that process works, like helps to coming here and like, okay, cool. I have my own ideas for how I brewed hazy IPAs home brewing. They don't really scale. Some stuff does a little bit, but like, learning that stuff.
It's interesting though, and what I like in the way that you're telling the story is that it's driven by a personal passion for these things too.
And I still love, like, I'm drinking,
you're drinking hazy IPA.
A lot of the brewers who go around and be like drinking Pilsners. It's just like, what double IPAs do you have? Like in moderation, I do love Pilsners, but I still enjoy them a lot.
And there's something about that passion driving, continued, attention and innovation. And focus on that, and it feels authentic and genuine. As you tell that story.
Oh yeah.
So then you decide to start up Barrel Theory, and then throw your own hat in the ring. And make beer here, and it needed to reflect these things that you were interested in.
Correct, because no one, like I said, it wasn't something that was here at the time, and I think Blackstack, which is down the road, had the hazy IPA-ish that they were doing, 755. I think that was like the first one here, and then we brewed Raindrops, and then we did the first double IPA that was hazy here. because there was no market. I mean, not
Right.
really. I mean, there might have been some stuff coming from out of state, but like WeldWorks and Odd 13, I think. No, that wasn't coming here. Sorry.
You can blame WeldWorks.
Yeah,
on
people
us.
were bringing that here.
We
This
brought
is-
them in for the festival years and years
Yes,
ago.
now we get them here. They weren't being distributed here,
Sure,
but I remember
sure.
like getting some of this stuff, and I had access to it. Anyways, yeah. So I wanted that here. I wanted to be able to provide
Right.
tap beer to people that like love that, because there was definitely like a need, or I should say a want, for those styles here.
And there still is. It's amazing at this Minnesota Craft Beer Festival we do to see the line for Drecker.
Oh,
of
yeah.
people lined up for, watching the interest and the excitement around that.
It still is.
It's,
Yeah, big
it's
time,
very visible.
We were just up there and like, yeah, the smoothie sour is now taking over. We were just talking about this before we got onto
sure.
it, like the mixed culture sour. Only a few kind of remain that people still kind of go after. I mean, there were so many good sour makers out there, and that kind of declined because the smoothie sour got invented, and they're good. I mean, they're good. I mean, they're like, you get a lot of vitamins and minerals from them. Like they're like a Jamba Juice with beer. I used to try them all and stuff like that. They're super good. But yeah, that was a thing we didn't touch on in 2017. So it was just like that came later. But yeah, so we started doing all that, and very popular at first for sure. We were like, me and my buddy were kind of like the first people to leave a bigger brewery to start a brewery in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Coming from Surly, they're a very prominent entity here. They did a lot of good things with beer. They helped
That's a
with the
pedigree
pint.
for you, and I'm sure as you know, former Surly folks going out to open a new brewery, that's a great story to go out there with.
Correct, yeah. And when I left, like a little bit later, Robbie left. He's at Falling Knife down there. Oh, they do a lot of good hazy IPAs. Tyler came here to work with me later. He was a brewer there, so we were all kind of from the same year-ish thing. And then he left and was like the head brewer at Bricksworth, which is like a Detroit-style pizza place with wings, really good beers. And they have a second location in North Loop too. So then he came down there with Dickie. He's at Ladagna, which is a kind of like a Latin-infused. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, so I'm sorry if you hear this and it's not correct. But like they do really good beers. They have like a small soccer field outside, so that's pretty dope. Yeah, so like those are a couple people at Weston. He's at Mass Landing. He was brewing there. He left, I think, a little bit after me.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of brewers that like left during that time, like call it like the heyday, I guess. So yeah.
Sure. I mean, larger and high quality breweries tend to do that, right?
Yep.
They just seed out. I was in Vermont, and you can see the same thing happen through like Magic Hat and Switchback and some of those older breweries. Like they become on the job training, and but then when you watch the kind of creativity that comes out from it in these roots, it's always cool to see those kinds of centers. Anyway, well, let's get into talking about and we can maybe start with Hazy IPA and then talk about some fruited beers from there, and maybe we'll finish up with a little bit of barrel aged stout. Before we do that, streamline efficiency with Omega Yeast's Diacetyl Knockout series. The DKO series is comprised of 8 familiar yeast strains engineered to knock out the formation of diacetyl before it starts. The strains you know now better, available now for made-to-order pitchables at any volume. Contact Omega Yeast today at omegayeast.com. Also, ABS Commercial has been a full-service brewery outfitter for over 10 years. They're proud to offer brew houses, tanks, keg washers, and preventative maintenance parts to brewers across the country, as well as equipment for distilling, cider making, wine making, and more. They know the ins and outs of the brewing and installation process and can design the perfect setup for you, whether you're just starting out or looking to expand. Contact them today at sales@abs-commercial.com to discuss your customized brewery needs. ABS Commercial, we are brewers. It's really fun to hear the brewery operating behind us.
They're doing some cannon.
There's some kegs moving. There's definitely cannon going on back there, and we are in the tap room, but it is right there next to the brew house.
It barely fits back there.
Yeah,
it's so small.
So let's talk about Hazy IPA. Obviously, you tried to culture up some Conan dregs, and that didn't work out great for you. Where you started in 2017 is probably different from where you are now.
Correct. Yeah.
Let's maybe fast forward and talk about the last 2 or 3 years and what your experimentation and work in the Hazy IPA space has led to kind of focus in on your approach now.
Yeah, I mean, like in the beginning, we used to use Conan quite a bit. It made good beers. Sometimes they would get like too melony though, and then sometimes not. And then like there was like sometimes there was like a little spot there where it was just like really fire beers that were very consistent, but like sometimes it would go off the rails a little bit with like your ester production, and
Do you have any idea what was causing some of those things to move?
I don't know, because like we're very
Sure.
very consistent. I think
Temperature,
the strains,
pitch generation, or is it just
for sure, like generation.
Yeah.
Once you get past like the third generation of Conan, it like starts to be really good, and then it can kind of go a little like super melony, and it's like because we're very consistent with our temps. Profiles of like what malts we're using and stuff like that, like when we're dry hopping. So that stuff is usually pretty the same unless we intend to change it, right?
Sure.
So we were using that, and then we ended up started using juice from Imperial quite often. That one's pretty good. Can be like a little inconsistent with like triple IPAs, so we like mix in USO5 with that stuff.
Interesting.
To help get them to like a perfect attenuation. Because it kind of
continuation with still the haze positivity.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Juice is just like, it's hard to get her down. I know I'm sure other people probably can potentially, but like for us, we, even mashing low, like we don't like to add a lot of like dextrose to our beers, but we add a little bit, even like adding a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we'd end up adding just
what's your finishing gravity goal on
like 4.5, 4.6 finishing gravity.
Okay.
Starting
is it single IPA haze or double IPA? Triple IPA. Okay. So
the single
4.5 for a triple IPA. That's pretty.
Yeah.
It's relatively lean for such a big beer.
Not sweet though. Like we want, once some of those warm up, it's hard to drink them. So I wanted it to be like where you could drink the beer as it's like cold, when it comes off the tap, to like a little warmer, because sometimes when they're like under attenuated, you get like that maltiness, and it's tough to finish. So I like that area.
So you need people to be able to finish your triple IPA.
I would love. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to. You buy it. Like, we'll take your money. Like, you bought the beer, but I want you to enjoy it and finish it. I get really like.
You got to be able to drink a whole can. You can't just pour this in 1 ounce samples for your beer trader buddies.
And I'm not gonna lie, I've gotten other people's beers, and I do put them through our thing to see where people's beers finish at and stuff like that, just to see like where we're at. Anyways, so we use juice. We went to that. Works pretty well.
When you blend those two, what does a blend like that look like? Is it a 50-50 blend, or
it's because basically
do you time the pitching, so the juice does early work and USO5 comes later?
So the blend, unless you're like blending tanks, which I know I've heard of people doing Conan and juice and Conan with other, or blending batches of beer sometimes is a thing. When you put two yeasts together, one of them's gonna like outpace the other. So you're only really good for 1 to 2 uses. For what
they're not going to stay in a balance.
No, they're not
one
going
is going
to
outcompete the other.
So you're kind of like, after your second use, I would say you're definitely getting some like. One of them's going to take over. It's usually Conan. It's a stronger yeast. So you get more of that like mango, passion fruit. Like the yeast is probably the best smelling yeast I've smelled. Like it's very nice. So we kind of like changed yeast strains. I've tried other ones. I've done
but
007.
It's generally a 50-50 pitch.
Yeah, when we do that. Yeah. Most of the time though, we do use juice.
Okay.
And if I do use Conan, it's I'm losing it right now. I get it from I'll come back to that. There's a place that we actually get it from that has like a really good strain of it. So Bootleg Biology.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
Cool.
One of the best I probably have had that produces that yeast strain.
Their Conan strain. Okay, interesting.
A lot of people do produce it. They're not all created equal, just like Juice, London Ale 3. They're not all created equal. But yes, we normally just use London Ale 3 and go with that. It works very well. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then, how do you then build a base for it?
A lot of our hazy IPAs are usually like a 75-25, like pills, Wireman Premium Pale Pills, and Rarturo.
Why Wireman Premium Pills? That's an expensive...
It's very light.
Expensive Pilsner to use, even though BSG's just down the road here.
It is. So it is a little cheaper for us to get it for shipping. It is a little bit expensive. I have switched it up. Like I sometimes will do 50-50. Sometimes it's 75-25. I don't know. It's like a lighter malt.
Yeah, color matters. And
color does matter.
You're going for a very light yellow color in this hazy IPA.
Yeah, it's the kids like that color for the photos on Instagram and stuff. But it's not like intentional. I try to I know color is important. I know a lot of beers that don't look like this and they're amazing, right? Yeah. So it's like, but some people see what they taste with their eyes, right? So we use that as a lighter color. I think it helps with some of the hops too coming through in the end. We never really have any problems with them being like light or not full because we do use oats. wheat, some like flaked wheat, some oat malt. We've done like spelt before. We do that with our triples. We use spelt.
Why just spelt and triples?
Like a nice flavor in the color. Like it gives you like a really nice like orange golden hue into them, I would say.
A triple IPA can be more orange and golden.
Correct. And we use Golden Promise in that. We'll use like 50-50 pills, Golden Promise. I like Golden Promise a lot. I used it a lot when we were at Surly, Todd the Axeman and stuff like that. It's nice to put in some of the beers that we do now. We do add that sometimes. We do try to change the malt bill here and there instead of like keeping it the same, which I know was like a thing. I know keeping the same malt bill, adding different hops, like, and I know that's good to like try, like to try different hops, right? Because there's a lot coming out, especially experimentals, to keep your base there. But like, yeah, we kind of stick with like a 50-50 or like a 75-25 mix of like pills, 2-row, Golden Promise, pills, 2-row, Golden Promise. Like we've tried a little bit of that and keep like, 20-25% flaked adjunct or wheat. So sometimes not. We've done like all care foam too, or care pills. We've tried that stuff too. So yeah.
And what are some of the results of some of these other things? Why, what were the goals with that? And
just to see what we would get, just using yeast and not using flaked adjunct. Just because I'm sure there's breweries that do that where they don't use flaked oats and they get like super sweet beers. I've done research and looked on multiple Reddit things where people are trying to figure out all these people's beers. Like, they don't use oats. They don't do that. I mean, I've tried them. There's some.
The goal of that is just push more protein in there. Create,
it creates a haze. It creates a body.
Polyphenol protein haze as well.
Soft. I really think though, like your water is pretty huge though. Like your water profiles are where it starts, because what's beer made up of 90% water. I think that's a huge thing to dial in. Before you get like, I'm gonna add like, I know people that have done 50% oat beers and they're okay. So it's like it's not always about that. Your hopping rates. What are you doing? Are you cooling down your whirlpool? I'm sure we'll talk about all this stuff coming up. But yeah, there's many things to go into just.
So you're mentioning it. What's water look like for you? You've got pretty soft water here in Minnesota.
Yeah, we have very soft water here. Like St. Paul's starting water is like 90 total dissolved solids. So very, very soft compared to some.
Mississippi River water, or is this?
It comes from a Jordan aquifer, I do believe. That's like down south or whatever. There's who knows? Like they tell you that, but like we get the water quality reports quite often and do that. Like I test the water too. I send it in. Get it done like by Ward Labs. We send beers in there sometimes too, just to see where we're at. It's usually like 225 chloride, like about 65, 70 sulfate, somewhere around there, sometimes lower.
Yeah.
It all depends. So what beer we're doing, like, obviously West Coast, we changed that quite a bit. It seems to be like a good profile. I'm always messing with it though.
Yeah.
I feel like, cause we add salts in the mash and in the kettle. So we'll do both. I know some people just do the mash. Yeah. Some people will do things in the kettle.
Why do you do both?
Something I learned, I think, at Surly, and then like by doing it here, it's worked for us. I feel like so far, I've done it where I put a little bit in the kettle, and the beers have like lacked a little bit, and I don't know if it's just because of the way like our mash tun is, like we lose a lot of it because a lot of those salts will get sucked in, right?
Yep.
I think they say grain absorbs 25-30% in water. So is that salt's getting sucked into the grain there?
It's probably the same effect we were talking about with zinc, that's added hot side that ends up getting bound up in trub and becoming less effective for you.
Yep, absolutely. So it's like we just add a little bit of both, like not crazy amounts. So we do that, and it seems to be working for us, but we're always fiddling with it, And then like I said, like the different niche strains and stuff like that. So
yeah.
For sure.
So water, obviously, grain is something that's malleable depending on what you're looking for. Obviously, you're making a lot of hazy IPAs, and if somebody orders a flight, you want them to all look a little bit different. So
we try. So that's tough. That is tough nowadays, I think, for everybody. It's like, can you get your flights? Like, you just give me the same beer, 6 beers. So we try to like do.
Right.
I know it doesn't always get done, but we try to do like get 3 IPAs. They're 4-ounce pours, and get a sour, and then get like a stout. We usually have a rotating or pills.
Yeah.
We do make pilsners here. A lot of,
I'm drinking one now because I'm one of those guys.
Yeah, that's fine. I know. It's pretty early when you got here. And I'm like, let's start with the pills, on the proper Lucor tap, it's a thing. We try to do that because yes, it's hard
Right.
to make them all look different, and ours don't a lot, but we try a little bit. That was kind of a little bit of a point that I do, but they don't all turn out the same either. Like when I've changed malts and stuff like that,
Right.
like with different hops, it's definitely like I'm still always testing and seeing what we can do different. You know, done it for 7 years, so you got to like try to like challenge yourself. You know, after that long, for sure. So
sure. With those hazy IPAs, you know, the finishing gravity pretty consistent between single IPA, double IPA, triple IPA. Does that move in any kind of direction?
Yeah, so single IPA is probably like in the 3.8.
Okay.
Double IPA is like 4.2, and then our triples are like 4.5, 4.6.
Yeah,
I would say. I like them to finish it. It's just like I like the sweetness a little bit, but I don't want it to be cloying, and I want drinkability. Like I know they might not be the most like fire hazy IPA you can get. I mean, I think they're pretty good. We do pretty good. I know because like when you do certain things, when there's a little bit more residual sweetness with what hops you're using, you know, like it does change. Like if you add a bunch of Citra to a beer and it has a little bit of residual sweetness, it's usually very good on the palate to a lot of consumers. So It's like I try to be in that range for most styles just to keep consistency. Right, because like we've brewed raindrops 7 years ago, and it's almost never really that different.
Yeah.
So we try to maintain that because we don't want people coming in here and be like, oh no, I had batch 3. This isn't as good as that. I kind of try to mess with some of them, but like a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
You know.
How does pH figure into this?
We try to keep our pH like going into the fermenter at about like 5.1, so lower pHs. It helps with like a little bit of the bitterness. We do have some bitterness in our hazy IPAs, which people seem to like. I know that's like in some
it's coming back.
Other brewers, right?
It's coming back.
Yeah, and I think some other brewers.
Maybe it's not coming back at the very top of the IPA.
We're not talking like 99 IBU,
scores.
Like West Coast heater that's just blowing your palate off.
There's still
I do
plenty
like
of
that.
4.8 hazy IPAs that are very, very too sweet.
Correct.
But,
so what kind of helps that though? Like if you can have a sweet IPA and like have a little bit more bitterness, drinkability, like we're talking about.
It's true. Like looking at one of these stats outside of the matrix of them together, it's not just finishing gravity. It's also what that bitterness is, and of course now increasingly harder to measure what actual bitterness is in a beer, since so much of it, since dry hopping is adding bittering compounds that are just not necessarily, the same isomerized alpha acids and all of that. I loved it. We were talking to Steve Luke from Cloudburst, and he's like, "Well,
good beers. I just had some from them actually."
Yeah. And asked him like, well, how do you test your beers for IBUs? He's like, no, I taste them. He's like, you create an IBU number based on what? Taste. Like, because that's really now the only thing. And
I know.
He was telling a great story about how he would, with a Bale Breaker lab, kind of play a game.
They make great beers too.
Where he would guess the IBU of a beer, and they would test it in the lab. And he was generally within like, 2 or 3 IBUs of the actual number on that beer, which that's
pretty good.
Yeah, hone in your taste like that, you can get it. Anyway, all of that's just to say that, the projections of theoretical IBUs don't always match up with people's perceptions of bitterness, and figuring out how to describe these things becomes a challenge.
Because it turns out analytical equipment to do that, very expensive. And I know you can send your beers out to get tested, but it's, a lot of people are just like, well, this is pretty much what I think. Because even when you whirlpool, even like, chilling the whirlpool down, even when you like put 0 IBU on your can, and if you, dry hopping does, but like even if you call it that and you do chill your whirlpool down below like, whatever 170, there's still going to be IBU there. Sure. So, and yes, and if you're, if you're putting your hops in close to terminal gravity and you're doing biotransformation, you're definitely getting IBU from that too. So it's like you better make sure that you chill your tank down and make sure it's all gone. But anyways, yes, it is coming back. We do add a little bit.
Yeah. Let's talk about your hop process. I'm curious about this, obviously, since you're not afraid of bitterness, and you're definitely also using some more contemporary hop products in the overall mix, whether that's concentrated hops, whether that's flowable hops. You're definitely trying to use all the tools at your disposal, especially because it's a small brewery here.
Correct. Yeah, 10 barrels. Yeah.
And you got to be efficient, and you don't have a lot of space for all this other stuff. So let's talk a little bit about that. But first, this episode is brought to you by Yakima Chief Hops. Interested in all things hops and beer? Join Yakima Yakima Chief Hops on August 28th through 30th for Hop and Brew School, one-of-a-kind educational experience in Yakima, Washington, the heart of hop country. Experience the thrill of hop harvest, tour multi-generation hop farms, walk through processing facilities, and attend panel sessions with industry leaders. Register at hopandbrewschool.com. Use code CBB10 for a 10% discount off your tickets. And if you're a brewer who's also interested in distilling, subscribe now to the Craft Spirits and Distilling podcast, available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hosted by Sidney Jones, head distiller for Fuse Spirits in Chicago, and Molly Troop, master distiller for Freeland Spirits in Portland, Oregon. This podcast explores the technical and creative processes behind great spirits through conversations with some of the leading distillers working today. It's everything you love about the Craft Beer and Brewing podcast, but focused on distilling. Click on the link in the show notes and give it a listen. All right, Tim, let's talk about hops.
Yep.
Where do you, and obviously this is a very broad subject.
Yeah.
You know, there's no one way that you do things. There's lots of ways that you do things.
Yep.
Are there some lanes now that you find, for, some common techniques, especially, with Hazy IPA, through the front end of the process, the hot side?
So we don't usually add bittering hops. Like a 60 plus edition or whatever, or 30 plus. We don't usually do those in Hazy IPAs. You can. I've tried them. Like it does add some more bitterness. Clearly, obviously that's more suited for like a West Coast like style of beer. We mainly add stuff in the whirlpool. It's pretty common for Hazy IPAs, right?
Sure.
We'll add like end of whirlpool. We have been chilling the whirlpool. I've done it before, like back in the day. But when I didn't have enough time, like I needed to go because I was the only person here brewing for quite a while. Like it was hard to it takes like for here, it's like 20 minutes to chill that thing down below like 170. We did notice
below 170.
Yeah, we do like 170. We get it. Well, we have to like chill it down to 150 and then it gets to like 170. Sorry about that. And then it gets to like 170, creeps back up. So we get it to like 170, 175. And that's okay. We never have had any problems with like any type of bacterial stuff or infection.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. We're very clean around here.
There's a lot of hops in there too.
Correct. So. Yeah. So we've done that. We have noticed like when you do it, it obviously is softer. You get a little bit more sweetness from it. I don't know. It's coming from the hop flavors, clearly. Something like that. So we've done that. And then we get in the fermenter. And we go to basically terminal gravity. And then we'll dry hop about 4 to 5.5 pounds per barrel. In the dry hop, like in different editions.
Yeah, how much goes in the whirlpool versus how much in the dry hop?
Like 1.1 pounds per barrel, something like that. If we do use other products, Incognito, 702 from YCH, we usually add that with like hops because I think a lot of the times, I know if people have put it in their fermenters. I know I've heard that, like Incognito in the fermenter. We've put it in like with hops because like a lot of the times.
The Kelsey McNair technique.
Yeah, it's like, I know, I listened to that podcast actually. I was like writing down notes, how to brew West Coast IPAs. This guy's won 1 million medals because I used to follow him when he was in homebrew. So
sure.
Kelsey, you make good beers if you listen to this. Anyways, so we'll add that stuff because I feel like it attaches like to the hop pellets and it gets in because a lot of times it'll sit on the top of the whirlpool even when we've mixed it in with like hot wort, like gently, not create too much oxygen in there, whether that makes a difference or not. It still goes to the top. So when we've added it with like hot pellets, like maybe 5.5 pounds of hot pellets, and then add the 702, which is equal to about 11 to 22 pounds. I think they say 22 pounds for a small jug of that. So we'll add like half of that. Works very well. Better yields, like a softer kind of like hop flavor there. And like it's got a nice aroma. I mean, that stuff fills the brewery up. I mean, when we're using it.
Sure.
So it works well. We don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
But we do it sometimes with stuff like that if we want like a better yield. I mean, the yield is half barrel more, like, in a bigger brewery, you could see it saving more, but in a small brewery, it's just like we just want to make sure that we're making the best beer because it's
with a lot of stuff you're serving over your bar, like an extra keg is
it's an extra a couple $100,
Sure.
Especially Hazy IPA for the double IPA, triple IPA, it's a lot of money.
It's expensive beers to make.
Correct.
It's better to sell more of them.
Yes, that's true.
Do you balance out hops? When you're building blends of hops, are there certain hops you use whirlpool, certain hops you only use dry hop, or, do you take a more agnostic approach to it?
Yeah, I mean, there's some hops that we, won't put in the whirlpool. like Vic Secret and stuff like that. I think it's like they're expensive sometimes too, like Galaxy. Like
Sure.
I feel like and they're like a higher, they can be like a higher alpha acid. We try to keep like the middle to low alpha acid hops in the whirlpool. Usually it's Citra Mosaic, stuff like that, even though those aren't necessarily always low alpha acid.
Just because whatever that residual heat is still
Yes.
going to have some effect
But,
on that.
Those hops have really good flavor.
Yeah.
So it's like some of these hops aren't as good as the whirlpool we've like found out, some of the aggressive, like we're not going to put Rawaka in the whirlpool because it costs them. It's like the most expensive hop to buy. We use it a lot, like, but it's very expensive. So it's kind of like a waste
Sure.
of using that, like in that when it's such a great hop in the dry hop. So, we usually use like those types of hops, like Mosaic, Citra, sometimes Cryo. We'll use that as well. It seems to get us also a better yield. Those products are really nice. Sometimes we don't put any hops in the whirlpool and we just send it to the fermenter.
Really?
So
no hops in the whirlpool.
yeah, and just send it over.
Hop.
Correct.
Huh. What would drive you to make that creative decision?
Just to see what it would do. To try.
How'd it work?
It was fine. It wasn't like I felt like it wasn't as like full. Like, what they call like hop saturation?
Sure.
I like hop saturation. I think that like when I taste people's beers, like, they're making them good, that they're not just like an attenuation deal. It's like a hop saturation. Like these guys used a lot of hops. I felt like it lacked that. So whirlpool hopping does help. I've tried it a couple times to see like on beers that we've brewed a lot of, like raindrops and stuff like that, to see if it would change. And it does. And the bitterness goes down a little bit where it's more, it's very much clean without anything like kind of helping with that, because, and I also think with the bitterness, like it helps you wanting to take another sip, it's like it kind of dries out your palate. And then it's like, oh, if it's light, I mean, if it's ripping your palate off, no, but like, even though there's a lot of West Coast that do that are very good too. But I would say like with a Hazy IPA, when it has that, it makes you want to have another sip. So yeah, I felt like it lacked a lot of that stuff. So we usually add a little bit of whirlpool hops into that. So
makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm just curious. It's always fun to learn from the individual experiments that you might have conducted.
Yeah,
even if you don't conduct those experiments again.
Yeah, just to see.
Sure,
kind of
sure.
fun.
When you think about blending hops, what's your process? Feel like in creating some of these blends, and does that in any way reference back to other elements of the recipes?
For sure. So like, there's definitely some hops out there that are very strong, very much like in your face. Galaxy, Rawaka, Vic Secret. Those ones are very aggressive to where I think a lot of people around here, because like, the Midwest, Minnesota is very much new to beer. The East and West Coast, in the grand scheme of things, very new to stuff. So like we were putting out beers like Rawaka and people are like, what is this hop? Like
sure.
we don't like this. And like liquor stores are like, what is this? Because, a lot of liquor stores read on tap now. And they're bringing in beers based on ratings, and that's fine because they got to sell beer too. But like when they have those things in there, it's they're like, oh, okay, and then they taste the beer like, wow, this is aggressive. So we try to blend in things that they know, Mosaic, Citra, Nelson, even. We try to use a lot of Nelson when we're blending stuff to make that like that gooseberry, passion fruit, type of flavors come through more than others. So we'll back off on other hops. And it's also like it's like a top 3 hop for me. So
yeah,
I like to do that. And then, sometimes
do you use some of these as, smaller percentages just to pull out characters of other hops?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the beer. Like we change them up because I know people like will say, like, we get that a lot. Like, you guys put Mosaic and Citra in there. It's like, in every beer, it's like, well, we've put in like Cascade and Amarillo and you guys don't buy it. So it's like, I don't know. Like, I love using them. Like, our West Coast that we have is very much to style. And like, we have one up there that's got Columbus Cryo in it and Rawaka. And it's a good beer, but it's just like, it hits you in the face. Like, Jesus. Because, it smells like super good weed.
Right.
And like the Rawaka's got like that nice, like earthy floral fruit, like passion fruit, underripe grapefruit, notes to it. So.
We're going to have to try some of that once we're done with this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, I try to like blend. Yeah, sure. I try to like do like, we don't always do it like,
but
we're always half and half.
People buy it when it says Amarillo, Columbus Cryo. I mean, yeah.
They do, but it goes a lot slower than say let me get that Citra Galaxy beer. Of course, it's just like, but then, I get consumer, like we'll be like, whatever, but like, I don't know. We still do it. Like we don't stop.
Sure. What are some of your personal favorite, hop blends that you make? Whether they're whether they're big hits with consumers or just the kind of things that you make for yourself.
Yeah. So we got like the Infinity Gauntlet of hops, we call it,
Infinity Gauntlet.
The Infinity Gauntlet's like some Thanos stuff here. Big Marvel fan. My dog's name is Tony Stark. Anyways, it's like Citra, Nelson, Mosaic, Nectaron. And there's a new hop that's coming out now that I think when they grow more of it's called Peacherine.
Yep.
Slapper. It's a slapper of a hop. They're trying to grow more of it, but it's like those are like my favorite. I've gotten them. But otherwise, yeah, it would probably be Riwaka, Nelson, Citra, Mosaic, Galaxy. Because the Galaxy now is like the Galaxy what it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know. I haven't asked too many questions about it, but like the Galaxy from the last couple of years has been like very okay, like subdued. And now like this new Galaxy is like, holy crap, like that is aggressive and good Galaxy,
HPA has made some investments in their stuff. And, I think there's a lot of, I think they have been listening to some of the brewer backlash.
Yeah, it's because we stopped ordering it for a while because I'm like, I can't use this because we have a beer called Magic Man that's like all Galaxy.
Yeah.
And I would say like going back to like we were talking about consumers and hops, not a lot of breweries are opening making hazy IPAs, and there's definitely a lot now in the last couple of years, but a lot of brewers don't use the hops that we use, I would say. Maybe because of price, availability, worrying about buying that and it being good. So it's kind of like we're using a lot of these hops and, we're like in a big area. So there's more people that come in here. They just don't know about it. And it's just like no one really makes it. So, it's interesting. So when I've gotten Galaxy, we use Magic Man. It was very earthy and like, okay. Even when I used more of it, it didn't matter. But like the new batches now, it's just like, holy crap. Like it is in your face good. Like it is.
It's such an interesting challenge and danger. I shouldn't say danger. It almost takes us in this hop world to some, challenge of the winemakers face that, you've got a yearly crop that may, and there's certain varietals that people are familiar with and have expectations around may not convey the same kind of way. And that adds an extra challenge, because that is also the thing that people now associate with some of these. They have now, for better or worse, we in the brewing industry have educated and connected consumers with these specific hops that they now seek out and look for. And that's a double-edged sword for us.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So,
anything else interesting to your approach to hazy IPA that we haven't talked about yet?
I don't know. I mean, you probably interviewed a lot of guys in the world of hazy IPA and stuff like that. I think we all do a little bit of similar stuff. I always like revert back to like your water profiles and stuff like that, like dialing those in. I mean, keeping not an obscene amount of chloride, the sulfate ratio. Right. It doesn't need to, be super crazy like that. If you want to put, magnesium sulfate in there and stuff too, like, that's like an important part. But like, chilling the whirlpool down, I think a lot of people do that, and like the amounts of whirlpool hops, but like recirculating hops in the fermenter, like that, that kind of can work good too.
You do that?
We've done it before, yes, because London Ale 3 tends to like top crop big time. Right. So like sometimes hops will stay suspended in the top of the tank because you'll go in there and we'll do like 2 or 3 different dry hops and you can still see like dry hops in there. So if you can rouse, sweet, like try that. But if you can like recirculate somehow in a pump that's not going to oxidize your beer,
sure,
that's awesome because now you're getting in contact, with the beer and all the hops and not wasting money on dry hopping with all these expensive hops. That seems to work well. We've chilled the tanks before too, like down to like 62, 63. And then dry hop that, try to drop a bunch of the yeast out and trub and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That works well. Very smooth. You get like a really nice smooth hop character. I just thought that it lacked the hop saturation when I did it, but I know other breweries that are very good at making these beers do that and they're very good. So it just depends on how your process and how you're doing it. So I might not be doing it as good as some other people have done it because I don't do it that often.
How do you, how do you work against? I mean, you're trying to balance saturation against this idea of hop burn.
Correct.
You want to capture that intense saturation, but you also don't want that herbal bite that just that turns people off. How do you work through those two competing things?
I think a big thing is like we don't have too much hop burn here. We like wait till terminal gravity, but I do think a little biotransformation helps with hop burn. rather than just adding it all at terminal. I mean,
Yeah.
I could be wrong. What I noticed is that did happen. We don't have a lot of that. We do a lot of good like conditioning time. Like we definitely don't put beers out. Like so we'll put them in the fermenter, dry hop them, do all that stuff, chill them at 30. You know, we get them cold. We let them sit warm, obviously with the hops, like 4 to 5 days. Drop the hops at the end, start chilling them. Drop it one more time when it's fully chilled.
Man, and make sure all the VDKs are scrubbed off again from all that extra fermentation that happens.
Absolutely. So they just sit, they mature, and then we send them to the bright tank. They sit in there for a couple days. We carb usually like a day or two after we send it, because like we start carbing, it just keeps on sending the crap up in the tank and hot particles and whatever true makes it over.
So you let them settle.
We let them settle, then we'll lightly
shave
start
the
carbing.
tank a little bit, and then you carb it.
And then we let that go for about 2 days, really cold, and then the canning lines usually come in around there. But then we also store our beer in the cans for a couple days, and then we send it out. So like we rarely send out, you know, day old or like day of beer, because the amount of hops that we do, I just feel like it can be a little hot burny, and I don't like that. But also, like, we have a brewer here that loves green beer. So it's kind of like, oh, I love this, you know? So we definitely try to avoid that and let them mature. I know breweries that do that too. That it takes them a while to make hazy IPAs, and they let them settle out and do the things. So, yeah. Yeah,
cool. Well, let's switch gears and let's talk about fruited sour beers, because you know, I can't say that I talk to a lot of brewers on the podcast who are super excited about brewing fruited.
I used to love them.
Yeah.
Love them.
And, you know, and so the idea that you're passionate about that and love the process of making it, that's exciting to me. Yep. So, you know, talk to me about, you know, your approach and generally, you know, what some of the foundations are now, you know, for building fruited beer. Do you have a common, you know, kind of lacto-driven, you know, acidic base beer that then you layer things on? Does that vary between fruits that you're intending to use in these? Talk to me about that process.
Yeah. So I started making, I was doing kettle sours in my garage. I got a bunch of beers that I had traded with the guy who kind of started the Miami Vice, Jonathan Wakefield. They were like enamel ripping, and I liked them. And they were like, because they had a bunch of tropical fruits, and I'm like, this is awesome. I never had anything like that. I mean, I used to drink lambic at beer shares, and I'm like, this is insane. This is so good. Tropical fruit. Awesome. Anyways, so I started kettle souring in my garage with the same basically bacteria that I'm using here. I died once, but we had some, and then because it got like mold on it because someone left the thing open. Anyways, I started making them here because no one had them, and everybody liked them when I homebrewed. I made a key lime pie Berliner, and then I made like a copy of dragon fruit passion fruit. Like I was saying before, both very expensive because they don't have a lot of dragon fruit passion fruit here, so we had to go to a bunch of Asian markets when we made a commercial scale of it here. I don't know. Ours weren't like enamel ripping, but like they were very like tart, and this was a way for me to make sours that no one's had here. I mean, we're in the Midwest.
Sure.
Like we're right stuck in the middle. You know, no one had them here. I was making them. I thought they were pretty good. I've never had one that was like smelled bad. There was no butyric acid, and we still kettle sour right now. We always have, always will. Like I know that there's, you know, you can add lactic acid to beers and stuff like that, and sometimes you have to do that, and that's okay. That's okay.
There are less craft focused ways of making some of these beers.
Yes, we don't add like any of those. The stuff you put in the extracts. We don't use a lot of. We use a lot of fresh fruit. So I just really liked them. We had a lot of customers that love them, especially when it gets hot here. They're very popular. The fruits, we won a gold medal for Midwestern Exotic at GABF, which I thought when someone called me, I was in Colorado. We were at Mushroom Rock. We were hiking up there. Someone called me like, yeah, you won a medal. I'm like, for raindrops? Like, no, for Midwestern Exotic. I'm like, how? Because it's very fruited. It's a very fruited sour, but it wanted them like that sweet. So it's a lot of, that's like basically tastes like a Capri Sun. And I like those flavors, like tropical fruit flavors or exotic fruits, all the passion fruit stuff. I like using a lot of that because I think it kind of reminds people of like the ocean and like going somewhere because we're like landlocked and we see like negative 70 degrees here. So using those fruits, I think, helps people. So I don't know.
You need those vitamins in the wintertime too, right?
Yes.
You got to get your fruits.
So much vitamin D here. There's so much. But yeah, I started making those. So and then the fruited sours, we do that like with like we've never used lactose really, but we do the smoothie sours quotations. Yeah.
Just with extra vanilla.
Yeah, vanilla marshmallow. We try not to use lactose because we have a lot of people that come here that live in the city.
Yeah.
I don't want lactose, and that's cool. That's fine. And they turn out pretty good. We use a lot of fruit. We do use coconut cream a lot. That helps, makes it more tropical fruited. People like that. So
gets that cocktail tiki drink kind of feel going.
Yep. So, and we continue to do kettle sours still. I mean, we always have one or two on tap. So we're still.
What's the base beer for that?
It's just two-row and wheat or pills and wheat. And then we brew that up, run it over. We don't boil it. So our culture has come from, I don't know, I probably had it. The first one was like 3 years and then it died because air got into it and molded up. And then we got it rebuilt up. So we don't boil the wort to kill off anything that's bad in there. We just always pull off and then repitch. So who knows what that culture is. So it's a very good culture and it's very clean. Beforehand, we send it over. We do like clean, sanitize. We purge the tank of oxygen, put like a top over the, where our like air stack is, so nothing gets in. And then we send that over, run it off. The only time we open up the manway is to put the culture in, and then we bubble CO2 through the bottom to mix up the culture, temperatures, make sure that those even out. We kettle sour like at 120 degrees. It seems to do really well, and it's usually goes from about 4.7, 4.8 to like 3.4, 3.3 in about 36 hours.
Yeah.
We just let it sit over the weekend. I don't care because we're not here brewing on the weekends usually. So we just let it go, and it's always very clean. We've never had a bad sour. Never.
And you don't exactly know what's in it in addition to lactobacillus now.
Clearly something good because it's never turned like rancid or, and no butyric or anything, there's nothing botulism growing in it, which when I was home brewing these things, concerning ones that I had made, I put wrappers over the top of like cardboard or like buckets and, it grew something that probably wasn't good.
Yeah. But then you're boiling to arrest that. And then.
Yep. We pull off a pitch into some carboy or into, corny kegs. And then, we boil it 30 minutes, chill it, send in the fermenter, let it ferment out. And then we add fruit.
What do you ferment with?
USO5.
USO5, yeah.
There is a sour pitch out there now. I know that we could talk about that too. There is a pitch of yeast called Philly Sour.
Yep.
That you can make kettle sours, and they do make good ones because I've had them, and it's still pretty good. But I kind of stick to what I'm doing for now.
If it works for you,
correct. I know it's a pain in the butt, and there's things that can happen, and infections in your brew house and stuff like that. But I like it. So we pitch USO5, ferment it out, gets pretty dry, and then we pretty much always add yeast post secondary if there's. Wine. If we make like one with wine juice that we get, we'll add that like halfway through so it ferments out, or else sometimes it doesn't work so well. So yeah.
Let me get this straight. You add more yeast when you're also adding a highly fermentable fruit ingredient just to make sure there's enough to dry out
No, we just add it mid fermentation so the yeast has had time to build up, because we're sending it into a pretty acidic environment, lactic environment. So we'll let it go like halfway, and then if we do, like, we don't make too many of those sours anymore, but like when we've added it like halfway through, so it ferments out, has time to build up some yeast cells and able to ferment out like any of that wine juice and stuff. But
you don't want to add that fruit too soon because you also need
it'll start eating that. It's more simpler sugar, right?
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, we don't, and then all the fruits post secondary fermentation in the bright tank, if it even ferments at all. So we don't get, we add potassium sorbate to our beers so they don't blow up in your fridge, which there's lots of pictures on the internet of. Like in the early days, it does happen if they're kept like warm, or if you put them in your car on your way home from wherever cool brewery you're getting them from. We do add potassium sorbate to them to make sure that they don't re-ferment. But that doesn't always stop them. So it's like we try to test them and put them in boiler rooms and make sure that they don't blow up and stuff like that, But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, what's the fruit process then look like?
Yeah, so
you most of the time wait to add fruit until after fermentation is finished.
Just so we can get
those
the flavors.
Still be sweet too. People want that out of this.
And there is a way, obviously clearly you can add fruit to bump up ABV and stuff like that when you are fermenting. You do get different flavors and stuff like that from fermenting the fruit with the beer, clearly. But yeah, a lot of the times we add secondary, whatever, various fruits they are. And we do recirc the beer with the fruit to make sure it's all like in there together. Like if there's like, like banana or coconut cream, which is usually thicker, we add all that stuff warm. We don't add it cold because clearly gets thicker than, molasses. I don't know, January, as the old saying goes. But and then we recirc it for like a day and then carb it up, and then before we can that stuff, we do recirc as we can to make sure like each can is like equal in fruit. But it is tough. Like when we keg them off, the fruit does separate. It's hard to like keep it from separating. It's just when there's so much fruit in there. I mean, it's about 60-40 beer to fruit, or 70-30. Sorry, we try to keep it about that 70-30, 60-40 fruit for that style of sour. The smoothie sour or whatever. So. We shake the kegs and stuff like that when we have to, because it's separate. I know it's like janky. I get it, but like it's like you just got to do it, and people do like it.
I mean, people have been flipping their Hefeweizen and kegs over for.
I heard that. Yeah, I know that is a thing.
Many decades, so
and it is a very popular style. Like we said, like when Drecker did the sours, there was people chasing trucks around here for cans. Like they're selling cans of them. And I'm like, this is crazy, but. People still really love them.
I never feel like there's anything objectively wrong with that. It's just simply making sure that expectations of consumers, are aligned with, handling and all of those other things. Like we're very comfortable and confident, drinking all sorts of things that need to be refrigerated, and it's just simply changing the assumptions that people might have for the way that they treat these kinds of beers. And but people are smart. Also now consumers understand that like. If I leave my Hazy IPA with 6 pounds per barrel of hops, like sitting in my trunk, of my car for a couple of days, it's going to taste like crap.
Absolutely.
And like the consumers are capable of understanding concepts like this. And so, understanding that these contemporary beer styles need to be protected,
I know,
to a greater degree, like, it's not the hardest thing to communicate.
There is a lot of people that are like, I shouldn't have to store my beer cold, and I shouldn't have to put this in cold. And it's just like, there's definitely like websites, groups on Facebook that are about like hating on the beers. And it's just like, wish we could go back to old times. It's just like the consumer is buying these. Turns out the brewery needs to make money. So it's going to brew the styles that the consumer wants.
Also, guess what? Plenty of those beers still do exist.
They do.
If you want those, you can still get those.
There's a lot of breweries that make the beers, the haze and sours that make really good, classic styles.
And if you can get beer in a clear glass bottle that's got Tetra in it that won't skunk even.
Correct.
Like, if you want longevity, there's plenty of those products out there.
Absolutely. They just got to, someone's got to complain about something.
There's also space in this world.
I think there is. I think there is.
For some of these flavor expressions.
Absolutely.
Cool. What, in terms of, I'm curious about coconut cream. Tell me more about using coconut cream, as this kind of richening, thickening, non-dairy, kind of piece.
Yeah. So, they're not all created equal. So it's like, that's like one secret that I had to like find out from different people, like talking to them, like, where do you get your coconut cream from? Because some are good, some are not so good. Yeah. Some of them like separate really fast. Some of them integrate really well. So we found one, we add it, like it adds like a nice, like clearly coconut flavor, and it's a nice coconut flavor. It's lactose free.
Is there any particular source that you have for this one, or are you going to hold that one close?
It's from the New York Hop Guild.
Oh,
it's very good. Cream of coconut. It's very good. We'll share because we got to share. Sharing is caring.
Sure.
But yeah, it's from there. We usually add like a box or two to a 10 barrel batch.
Yeah.
Mixes really well. It gives it like a nice creamy coconut flavor. It adds a little bit of body to it. Obviously, if you're making some type of tropical. People are adding everything. I mean, we got ice cream in beer. We have Dole Whip, in the stuff. There's cream cheese. I don't know if it's really cream cheese or if it's an extract, but you hear like there's
powdered cream cheese. It's a thing, right?
You just go on Webstaurant and be like, what kind of cream that's dairy free that I can put in my beer? And that's what we're becoming. And that's okay. If people are buying it and you can make it well, sweet. But yeah, I mean, it has a nice, like the people love the fat bubbles that come up from it when you pour it, and it's just like,
sure.
I do like the flavor of it. I do like adding it to tropical beers, that have like Alfonso mango, passion fruit, like, or even like orange. It gives you like that orange Julius from the malt flavor, which
Right.
people like. But yeah, we add it warm. If you cool it down, it's like it's hard to get
Right.
into your, especially if you're not recirculating. It's very tough. I found out because it's coconut cream, so it's fat and gets pretty thick. But this stuff works really well. You add it warm and it works super well, and it really integrates very well too. So
Cool. Are there? You mentioned you use a lot of whole fruit, but I imagine you also use a lot of puree.
yeah.
How is there fruit forms or some fruit combinations that become just kind of enduring good ones for you?
Yeah, I mean, we do lose purees from like Oregon fruit, like that New York Hop Guild stuff that we use. Has a lot of good fruits. Passion fruit, that changes across the board.
Yeah.
Oregon fruit has really good passion fruit. There is like a thing about people using we do use this other company that locally is like a restaurant wholesaler that gives us fruit from France. That's called, I can never pronounce it right. It starts with a B. It's kind of expensive, but it's like the best passion fruit I probably tasted, but you pay for it,
Sure.
So those fruits that everybody does, because there's multiple producers of aseptic puree out there, and they're not all created equal, but the passion fruit's very good from there. Guava, I like a lot, and mango. We use in a lot of beers.
Yeah.
Tangerine and pineapple are very big ones too. And then mixing them with berries and stuff like that. They're crazy combinations that maybe some folks haven't had.
Right.
So it's always kind of fun to do. Mixing in granola, vanilla, marshmallow fluff into some of this stuff. You can buy it by the tubs from, food where
sure.
Webstron or whatever, Food Warehouse Direct or Food Service Direct.
Right.
So incorporating all this, it's kind of fun. You can add whatever you want.
Sure.
We've used coconut chips, in these beers, and it's a little bit easier to use, but you just don't get the cool bubbly in the body from it.
Right.
So there's so many things that you can do, and there's a lot of people doing really cool things, like Mortalis out there. I hope I pronounced that right. I've had a lot of their beers are crazy cool sours. There's that brewery that's out in Virginia. They do cool sours too. So
Aslan?
Nope. What's the one that's Answer? Is that in Virginia?
Oh yeah, yes, the Answer in Richmond.
Yes, they were one of the first ones I tried.
Sure,
super fruited, super good. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of great things with those things. Strecker, clearly, I mentioned those a few times already. So I don't see them going anywhere anytime fast. Maybe we come back to mixed sours. I'm not sure if they do. We'll try to make them again.
They can all coexist.
Yeah, they all can.
There's still a market. It's very small. But
it's
still
getting those new beer drinkers, wanting to drink those things. Because in our market, we're kind of veering off to the side here. The THC thing is huge here.
Sure.
Because we can make them as a brewery. Those are becoming very big things. And NA beers, which we've done. The company is local here. We've done a Hazy IPA that was made into NA, and a coconut milk stout that was made into NA, and they were pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah, they didn't suck. Yeah, they were pretty good.
Interesting.
I was very weary about it, but they were pretty good. So that's another thing that I think we're getting into is kind of the next phase, the NA. I don't know. I can't say that for certain, but it feels like there's definitely more NA folks than there ever was before.
And the technology is getting better.
Correct.
And, I find it, I've been drinking more NA beer over the last few months. And, I'm finding even just I still drink regular beer too.
Sure.
But it's not the worst thing to just, blend them in while you're drinking because I like to continue drinking, especially if I'm drinking higher ABV beers. It's I can't just drink 5 of those in a row and still be functional. And so, I want to be a responsible adult, but also enjoy these things. Find some NA beer to mix into the mix.
And the NA sours, going back in the sours,
sure.
Very good. There's a brewery called Elm Creek up there, not far, about 38 minutes from here. Very good. Their NA sour is very good. So it's it's an option. And I think more breweries might start getting into that. And that's an easier one to make into NA because of the fruit flavors.
Sure.
The body is the thing about that.
Those styles also lend themselves to gluten-free options for folks. And, because again, that fruit becomes the thing that carries it more and creates body where...
You the gluten-free sours?
Yeah.
We're going to make one of those. Those are becoming a big thing,
Yeah.
I think there's definitely, that's like the next thing that we're going to do this summer is gluten-free sours. So
Interesting.
I've had a couple corporate ladder. They're very good.
Yeah.
Yep. Very good.
So we didn't get to talk about barrel aged beers, but we're running up on time here. Let's just zoom out. And I mean, I'm sorry because we didn't get your true.
We were talking.
Your beer trader, beer geek on. But I think what we're just talking about here is a good kind of preface for this question. As you're thinking about what's next, for Barrel Theory, what excites you from a brewing perspective? What are you really focused on innovation in right now, and what do you see you putting a lot of energy into over the next 2 years?
I think continuing trying to make Hazy IPAs better, always challenging myself because there's always new hops coming out.
Sure.
Using any new hop products and stuff like that can make a better product, for sure. We talked about the gluten-free stuff. I'd like to get more into that. Maybe some NA stuff going forward with that. Hopefully we build a bigger brewery pretty soon. We have, need more space here. It's
a good problem to have.
It's tight. It is a good problem to have in today's market for sure. Not too big, but just a little bit bigger. Kind of focusing on that, making more stouts. We do make a small amount, but it's just enough. But I like to continue to do that with different ingredients, different barrels, different process on that.
Not a giant moneymaker, but just something that lets you
drives people in. You put all the things in there, and
lets you be creative.
Collab with somebody, puts a name on there, it brings people in. They're fun to do. I think we're just kind of geared towards that. The THC market, I don't know if we'll get into. It's a big thing right now. We'll see. Probably make 1 or 2 of those in the future here. We'll see. Just trying to push myself and continue to make better beers, I guess, because I still love drinking them, and I go and still go to other people's breweries and taste the beers and drink them and enjoy them.
Still trade for some beers here.
All the time. I like it. It's cool. I don't know. It's cool. I know a lot of people don't do it, but I don't know. I like it. You get sick of your beer after a while. I love my beer, but I do I like to try someone else's for, a week, Well,
there's something to be said for experiencing that context that that same beer geek audience is also experiencing on their own, and being able to understand, there's something interesting to this, or does this match the hype?
Yep.
But having that context, I mean, it's something I'm lucky to get, because I get to go drink beer and talk about brewing with people all over the country. And so I have a context that it's not something that everybody gets to do. But you have to be intentional about it, and it sounds like you are intentional about that.
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, cool. What's the long-term goal for Barrel Theory? What do you hope to achieve with the business as a whole?
Probably just grow it a little bit bigger. I think the market right now, having big breweries right now is not I don't think it's ever going to be like that anymore.
Yeah.
The 10,000 plus barrel breweries, excuse me. Staying in that, we brew here 1,300 barrels a year. Maybe get up to the 2,500 if we can expand a little bit or move somewhere. Maybe get some food. Start that. Have a tap room with some food. It's kind of the next jump to what we're doing here.
Sure.
So I think that's we're gonna try to focus on that and focus on what we're doing here and stuff. Continue on doing what we're doing because it seems to be working okay for now. So
playing in the creative space and making exciting things to keep people engaged.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to bring it to a close. Choose G&D Chillers on your next expansion or brewery startup and receive 1 free year of remote control and monitoring. Take your operations to the next level with the experts at ProBrew. Old Orchard is your go-to source for fruit-forward ingredients for some of the biggest names in the craft brewing landscape. Omega Yeast's diacetyl knockout series is comprised of 8 familiar yeast strains engineered to knock out the formation of diacetyl before it starts. ABS Commercial are proud to offer brewhouses, tanks, keg washers, and preventative maintenance parts to brewers across the country. Join Yakima Chief Hops August 28th through 30th for the Hop and Brew School, a one-of-a-kind educational experience in Yakima, Washington. And if you're a distiller or curious about it, check out the Craft Spirits and Distilling podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, go to beerandbrewing.com, click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber, help support our mission to bring great content to you across every format that you want to consume it in, whether that's podcast, whether that's reading on paper or reading on a screen, or even watching our video classes through our all access subscriptions. We try to bring you great content about brewing in every format that you might want to consume it in. But it takes your subscription to help support our mission to do that. Tim, if people want to learn more about Barrel Theory, where can they find more about you, either in real life or on the internet or both?
Yeah, Instagram, Barrel Theory Brewing. Same thing with the website, barreltheorybrewing.com. We were located in Lowertown, St. Paul. We're about 6 blocks east of the XL Energy Center, right by CHS Field. Facebook, Barrel Theory. Already said the Instagram. Yeah. Google us, you'll find us.
Find your local beer trader in St.
Untap
Paul,
us, yeah,
and and start working out your trades now.
Sure,
to get a taste for what they're brewing right here at Barrel Theory. Anyway, it's great talking to you about brewing, Tim.
For
Cheers.
sure.
Cheers.
Thank you.
This podcast has been brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those who love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.